Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Hudson Institute think tank in Washington, D.C. to talk to Dr. Patrick Cronin, who heads who is the Asia chair here. Patrick, fascinating time to be watching Chinese leadership. The coronavirus entire global pandemic has illustrated a lot of problems with Xi's leadership. Talk to us a little bit about the global importance of this event that could actually prove to be one of those things that is a black swan event that proves very destabilizing for a government that's prided itself on authoritarianism and stability.
Well, thank you for that question, Vago. I mean, first of all, this is a stress test, essentially, on the Communist Party of China. And by stress test, I mean this is a crisis, and you're sort of able to measure sort of the system and the party by how they respond to this. And those stress tests only come up once in a crisis, and therefore it's very important to learn as much as we can from this. Second point is that, of course, we share a common interest, along with all Chinese people, in trying to solve and prevent pandemics. And this is an area for some cooperation. But putting that aside, we have to go back and learn what is the Chinese response to this coronavirus. And what we now know, even here in mid-February, is that the Communist Party of China mishandled the early stages of this coronavirus. They could have limited it more. They took drastic actions late, but they allowed this to spread because they didn't want information to jeopardize the sanctity and the unity of the party and the power of the party and Xi's power. So they had an early party meeting the first week of January. They knew about this crisis. It had been already 5 weeks since the first infection in Wuhan, so they knew this was developing. They didn't mention it at all. Even during the Lunar New Year, as it started those celebrations in Wuhan, they were denying that there was human-to-human transmission. They knew it already there was human-to-human transmission. They knew this was gathering, but they didn't want anything to ruin the party, so to speak, in terms of the Lunar New Year, and therefore to reflect on Xi's leadership. Belatedly, because they knew this crisis now was going to take a lot of casualties and was very contagious, they took drastic actions, and those drastic actions have in turn helped China, they've helped the world perhaps further contain this spread, and that's a good thing. But Xi Jinping has been punctured. You know, the mandate of heaven, the idea that this leader is all-powerful, that he's gathered more titles than anybody since Mao Zedong, and it looked like he was going to be permanent leader, no more term limits, for this Chinese leader. No, there are real questions whether he can survive beyond 2022. Or if he does, what compromises does he have to make? What concessions must he make? How is the PLA treating him? Because the PLA was forced into Wuhan at the last minute to manage the crisis without consultation. They can't be happy about that.
Well, and talk to us a little bit about the military, right? Because he has been trying to assert his dominance. We were talking a little bit, Hu Jintao was talking about that saying, hey, look, we civilians are in charge. And Xi very cleverly worked very methodically to make sure that he asserted his dominance over the Chinese military. What does this tell us, given that the Chinese military tends to be a little bit more proactive, a lot more aggressive when it comes to exerting Chinese influence in the region?
It's a great question, because we saw how your intentions can change as you gain power. This is what happened with Xi through the Belt and Road Initiative. He wasn't opposed. He started to spread his tentacles widely, and he kept moving, and big promises and big expectations. Well, now you have the PLA, and suddenly you're talking about, hey, we need to trim the budget. We're not going to grow at the same rate. And the Chinese military is saying, are you kidding? We finally have the Chinese pride and the might to be able to stand up to the United States and get them out of the first island chain and to protect our interests, and you're gonna limit us? I don't think so, Xi. So, on a Taiwan scenario, on a South China Sea scenario, I think there's a real concern that there could be a rupture in civil-military relations in the future between Xi and the PLA. The PLA supports the party, but if they don't trust the leader of the party, the man who has all the power and has been calling all the shots, then there's a problem. Now, we won't see this until it maybe develops in the midst of a crisis, but I think there are real questions about the loyalty of the party behind Xi Jinping, and that may either Xi may be toppled after not given a third term after 2022, or conversely, he makes concessions to keep the military on his side. What are those concessions? What is he talking about? Taiwan, for instance.
And to that point, Ryan McCarthy, the Army Secretary, and the Chief of Staff of the Army were at a Center for New American Security recently talking, and one of the, earlier this week I should say, and one of the points that Ryan McCarthy made was trying to look at the stability of the Chinese government and what the whole coronavirus crisis means for leadership and for Xi. There are some strategists, and you and I have talked about this, that when governments actually become destabilized, particularly authoritarian ones, they tend especially ones that have built up nationalism, have a tendency to actually contrive an international incident to use as a weapon. How does this potential leadership turmoil play in terms of how China is behaving externally, and does that actually incentivize potential adventurism to contrive an international incident around which they can rally support domestically?
Well, sometimes I would say let's not fantasize too much about what's possible. Let's not try to make scenarios that haven't happened yet. I think you're on the right track here, and that's because Xi is determined to keep power. Xi has the power. The Communist Party is the power. It's not going anywhere. So the party's not ending right now, but the question is how will it adapt to this crisis, because it's lost legitimacy, it's lost power. Now you have the PLA saying we need more resources, we need to show how important we are, we need to show we're indispensable to China's future, to the fact that we are experiencing the China dream, and we're going to realize it. And the case number one is the sovereignty issue. It's the unification of China. It's Taiwan. You know, we need to do more than saber rattling. We need to finally stand up to those two carrier battle groups that came close to Taiwan back in the mid-90s, that we responded to by building a massive anti-access area denial capability. But now, in the 2020s, we need to show no, we don't allow America to sell arms anymore. We don't allow Taiwan to go its own way on defense. Not necessarily invasion, but just that kind of really tough challenge. Then it's going to behoove the United States and our allies. Are we ready to respond to that? Did we anticipate it? Could we have prevented it? So we have to think very carefully about this. I think here's a key point from the Chinese perspective and from the party perspective, really not the Chinese perspective. I know they like to say we speak for all 1.4 billion Chinese. They're not speaking for the Uyghurs, for instance, who are in the camps. But clearly for the Communist Party of China, if the United States is seen as trying to bring down the party, to threaten the party, that is a survival issue. So the message here to Beijing is no, we are not seeking to threaten your survival. In fact, we share a common interest in fighting pandemics. So just the opposite. However, we're going to call out malign behavior. We're going to call out and put transparency on how decisions are made, because that's part of our value system, and that's part of what will make a better international order.
Dr. Patrick Cronin here at Hudson Institute. Patrick, thanks very much as always.
Thank you, Vago.